Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and I found the old photos as part of the Fro Film project, the ones that were under my bed. Now I found the ones that go all the way back to junior high school from when I was about 13 or 14. So we're looking at 1994 or 95, where I was shooting baseball just for myself. I wasn't shooting for the yearbook. I was just figuring out how to make a camera work. What camera did I have? Well, it was the Canon EOS Elan. My mom took me over to a camera store, and that is the one they recommended, so that is the one that I bought. It didn't have a motor drive. I think it was like 3 frames a second, maybe it was even 2.5, and the lens that they sold me was a 100 to 300 piece of crap 5.6, and I learned using that lens. That's why I'm a big proponent and a big fan of pushing quality glass, because I started with junk and I worked my way up to something better, and I learned the hard way by investing in the wrong stuff. Now, what modes you may want to know what I was shooting in? Well, I was shooting baseball and a lot of sports, and I was in the running man mode. The little baseball guy, or the running person, because I thought that was the one you used for sports. My manual said, use this for shooting sports. I didn't know anything else. I put film in the camera. I, honest to God, didn't even know how the film rewound after taking that first roll. I think I exposed part of the film the first time I used it because I didn't realize, I thought after 36 shots it was done. You keep shooting and then it automatically rewound. So I just didn't know. I was learning and just experimenting and shooting. So let's look at some of the photos to see what I captured. So we've got one of the guys batting. He actually works at the high school now where I went. He now coaches baseball over there and is a teacher. Composition-wise, you can see the difference in the 5.6 in the background. It's not totally blown out, so it's a little distracting with I think that's a person or whatever that is over there. Framing, he should be a little more centered. And if the ball was there, it would be slightly better, but not bad timing. I did not motor drive. I was trying to capture the moment here. Vertical shot, it's a crop because it's an 8x10. That wasn't my choice. That's just how they did the stuff back then. I really didn't know much. So the way that the guy at the camera store did it was the way that I got it done. Same guy. Filled the frame even more. You can see that I filled the frame a ton even back then when I first started out. That was just how I did it. I filled the frame. It just seemed to make sense to me. That's just a basic baseball shot. Not much else you can say about that. But then I started to get creative. I did something like this. Ooh. I know some of you are sitting out there going, oh, but I can do that in Photoshop. Well, we didn't have Photoshop in 95. It didn't exist, I don't think. Did it exist in 95? It did? Holy crap, it must have been expensive. Steven's shaking his head. So I didn't have Photoshop. I did have a computer. I had a 486 DX66 with an upgraded to 4 megs of RAM, and I had Corel Draw. But I had no way of getting the photos into the computer because scanners weren't readily available. Anyway, multiple exposure. I had to figure out what I could do. So I was thinking, hey, why don't I take a picture of him batting and a picture of him before he bats to try to get a multiple exposure. Now, the reason he's not swinging is because I didn't want to have a bad picture on top of this one shot. You only had one chance to get it right if you were going to do this. And then I had to think, what should my exposure be? Because I had to switch into manual. And I was like, okay, if it's normally 2/50th of a second is the right exposure, I have to then say that I'm going to take 2 frames, which means that the shutter has to be open for less time for each because it's going to expose the image twice. So then you cut it in half. Instead of 2/50th of a second, which is open to be a proper exposure, I opened it to 500th of a second, which was quicker. So 2 of those together seemed to make sense, I think, when at the time I think that made sense to give me what would be a proper exposure. So that was when my brain started to figure out manual exposure. I didn't switch into manual. I still stuck into the running man mode for a long time, but this was the result. I mean, that's pretty cool. To be able to do this, it was just really nice to see. So that was a nice one. We'll move quicker through these because they're pretty basic. I had an open way to shoot, didn't have to shoot through the fence. Shoot this guy here, anticipate the motion, capture it, shoot it, and that's what we got right there. Then you have the left-handed pitcher. Tommy Canning, I think his name is. I think that's his name. Shot him like that. This is good action. The camera did a great job knowing the proper exposure. I want to skip this one. This is now at the Little League field. I would just go out and take pictures. I was practicing. And again, you're shooting film. So it's not like I had 8 million shots to get it right. And we got this, you know, anticipating. I got the ball right on the bat. The problem here is it's getting darker. So this was probably like a 5:30 game, 6 o'clock at night. So you didn't have a lot of light. There were no lights on the field. Probably using 400 speed film. That's why I'm getting this blur. I probably didn't understand why this was happening at the time. That if I was in manual and I overrode the system and had a faster shutter speed, it would have been better. I just didn't know that. But that's the perfect timing. One frame, captured it, boom. A lot to learn. But this, I guess there's a lot to learn looking back. So this is the same kid pitching. It would have been fine as a full frame print, not an 8x10. As an 8x12, it would have been much better. And then the last shot here, I believe this is high school. I think this is high school. Is it all good, Stephen? It says, to Jared, love Bonnie Randa, number 14. What? Oh, this way? All right, now you can see what she signed to me. So she was the leading scorer in high school history or something. So I went out there and I took some photos for her. This was black and white, C41 black and white film, meaning it was technically color film that was processed, well, black and white colored that you ran through the processor. The contrasts and tones were never that good, but that's what I got out of it. And really, this is just a look back at some of the images from when I first started out with that Canon EOS Elan. You can see I was experimenting a little bit. It was a lot more difficult. You don't get to see the results, so you had to guess, especially with that the multiple exposure, trying to figure out the settings and just logically knowing that if a good exposure is 2/50th of a second, well, then I need to multiply that to have a quicker one. So I needed 2/500th of a second exposures to get the image to be properly exposed. Just the things that we dealt with. So that's another look back, a Fro Film Project video. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.